There doesn't quite seem to be enough industrial design jobs to go around.
The competition is like really intense.
Mechanics, function, how a product works.
It just wasn't at the level I felt that I wanted it to be.
All the best designers are getting the jobs.
I would still say it's a bit hard, I guess, to get internships. I guess harassed in the workplace.
It's a very unique look.
I'm trying my best.
It could be stronger.
Hello guys, I am Vinny. I'm a senior at NABA Milan, and this is Portfolio Pinup.
Why Milan and not anywhere else? I mean, I'm thinking if you're gonna choose to travel, leave your country, go somewhere else, why Milan compared to any other country?
I mean, of course, the US was one of the options, but the cost was really prohibitive, and compared to the tuition fees was insane. For example, I checked Rhode Island School of Design, and I couldn't afford that. This offer came where I could study in India for a bit and then go to Italy, and Italy was way more affordable. Plus, Milan is like a hub of design and opportunities.
Tell me about how much does it actually cost to attend the school that you're going to in Milan?
I think per year, I had to pay around 15,000 euros per year, which amounted to 30,000 euros for the 2 years I will be here. That was still something within the range that I could afford to go in compared to, I think there are some universities in the US where 50,000 would probably be a year's alone, or maybe not even including living expenses.
15,000 euros is around 17,000 USD, so not that much more. The euro conversion to USD conversion is just a couple $1,000. That actually is very affordable if you were to compare it to United States schools. $15 to $17,000 is pretty much how much I paid. I paid around $8,000 per semester times 2, which is around $16,000. And that's actually considered a very affordable school. Is that considered affordable in Milan too, the prices that you're paying to go to that school?
NABA is probably it's a private university, so it's actually a bit more of a premium kind of price you're paying.
How are you paying for going to such a nice school in Milan? Are you taking out loans, or your parents helping you out? How are you affording that?
I'll be honest, it's just my dad pays for it. My parents pay for it. I have seen actually a friend of mine. He also studied with me in the university back in India. He couldn't afford to come last year because the cost was prohibitive. So this year he came because his dad took out a loan for him. As someone coming from the US to here, it will be affordable for you. But for someone coming from India, 15,000 is still a lot of money. And a lot of people back home, maybe if they went to a design university in India, the kind of money I pay for 1 year over here, they could possibly have their entire design education done in that amount of money.
Why not just stay in India and maybe get a industrial design degree?
There are probably 2 or 3 really good universities in India for design, but the competition is really intense because we are people of a country of a billion. Still, just the sheer amount of people who are competing for the number of spots is insane. For example, probably the best institution in India for design is NID. Then there's IIT, which is actually known for engineering, but they also have a design department, which is pretty good. Probably I would have to be in the top 100, top 30 if I want to have a chance. At first, I didn't want to go abroad. I just wanted to study in India. But then later, my dad kind of said that if you go abroad, you would be open to more experiences, get a feel for the design culture there. And now I kind of, I'm happy I took the decision because just the amount of exposure that I've had in terms of design thinking and being able to interact with people from different cultures and different perspectives. And in that way, that's kind of pushed me more to explore design.
What does the design scene in India look like? Are there a lot of jobs out there? Do you think you'd be able to have a higher chance on getting hired as an industrial designer in India, or do you think it's more of a higher chance to get a job in Milan?
I think if I went back home right now, I would have a much easier time to get hired. But I think for the current level of portfolio I have, I don't think I would find it too difficult to get an internship. But again, I would prefer to like get it here. But of course, over here it's a bit tougher. The job market isn't exactly very not in a great upswing right now. It's not like you cannot get jobs in English, but people prefer if you know Italian. Analogy design in Bangalore, there's Studio Carbon in Ahmedabad, and they do like really good work. And honestly, if I were to go back to India, I would love to join like firms like that.
What kind of company would be kind of like the ideal job for you after graduating and landing your first job?
Yeah, I think I would like to work in some sort of consultancy design studio where I get to work on like a large range of projects, maybe automotive, footwear. Footwear is something I've been a bit interested in. I don't want to like restrict myself in terms of a specific field.
So let's say you were to land a job at a consultancy in Milan. What is kind of the starting salary that you've heard so far? What are your expectations, say, if you were to land that first job out of school? How much do you expect to get paid?
I think if I was like interning now as a student, honestly, I've heard some really like bad horror stories, like unpaid stuff, or they like barely get paid. From what I've seen in terms of the job postings and stuff, I think as an intern you can expect around 800 to maybe like 1,200 euros per month. A junior industrial designer or something like that. Probably you could expect around 2,000 euros around that range.
All the Americans out there. 2,000 euros is about 200 or 2,300 ish at the moment. Is that a good amount? Do you think that you'd be able to live on that amount in Milan?
It depends on your lifestyle. For example, right now I live very frugally. I pretty much whatever like the amount of money I get from my dad per month, most of it just goes to pay my rent, and the rest of the money goes to basically like food. That's basically all I spend on groceries. I don't travel much. I don't go out and watch movies or like I don't party at all. I rarely party or do anything like that. So I'm trying to like save as much money because I don't want to like spend money on those things because it's not my money, of course. And but for me personally, I think I would be able to live pretty comfortably in that amount. Especially like right now, for example, I'm sharing a room with a guy, and if you want to like have your own studio space here in Milan, especially Milan is one of the most expensive cities to live in the world. So if you probably wanted your own studio space and also probably somewhere near the city, central kind of region, you probably have to pay upwards of 1,200 at least minimum euros, probably more than that.
That's pretty much half of your full pay just going right into rent. Tell me a little bit about what the work life is in Milan. Like I said, I have no experience in other countries other than America. Are they expecting you guys to work, 10, 12 hours a day? Bosses always giving you work to do, micromanaging? Or is it pretty chill, relaxed, lots of breaks, lots of vacation hours? Like, just give me a broad sense of what you've picked up so far just being in Milan and how it's kind of like, having a job and building a career there.
Coming from India, where like the work culture can be quite overbearing. From what I've seen, some of my friends have started working back home, and they pretty much only have time for their job, and like they come home and then just fall flat and just fall asleep. So compared to that, I think Italy is way more relaxed. And definitely, I think there are like laws and stuff which protect people from being, I guess, harassed in the workplace. So it's actually very chill here, and Italians take their work-life balance very seriously. I'm guessing it's much more laid back compared to what maybe the American kind of work culture lifestyle is. And especially with regards to holidays, you do not mess with people here. Like if they are on a holiday, if you message them, mail them, they are not going to reply. They're not going to like get back to you until like they come back to work. That's it. So do not like expect them to reply or that.
The very little that I've heard, it's China and India typically are very strong when it comes to just committing yourself to your job. And Euro has that reputation in America where it's very relaxed. They take a lot of breaks, vacations, everything's very chill. And then in America is somewhere in between these two, where we do work a lot, but we also do have some vacation time, and it really depends on the company you end up landing in. But in general, it doesn't seem as intense as China and India, but it also doesn't seem as relaxed as Europe. Let's go back to your portfolio. I've kind of browsed through it real quick, but from your point of view, kind of give me a sense of how you're feeling about it. Do you feel confident? Do you feel like you've done your best work? Do you think that it's comparable to some of your classmates that you're attending school with now?
My first year when I used to keep making my portfolio every year, I always felt like something was like lacking, something. It just wasn't at the level I felt that I wanted it to be. But I felt for the first time probably I feel like comfortable like showing this portfolio to people and like backing up my work. And while I wouldn't say I'm particularly like lagging behind, but I also wouldn't say I'm probably like the cream of the cream in terms of the talent out there. But I can like justify the work I do, and I wouldn't say I would say it's probably above average. I would say in a way. Uh, but in comparison to my classmates, probably I would be in the more top section of the class in terms of product design. But again, it's NABA and like we have a very different design approach. Like it's more, we have more varied and diverse perspectives here compared to like maybe a more typical hardcore ID school where they look at your skill sets. So if you're comparing it to that, probably I'm somewhere in the middle, I would guess. I just locked myself in the house for like a week and just went straight and just got done with my portfolio and then sent it out to a bunch of professors. I asked my classmates for feedback. In terms of the content of the work, they said that the content is there for sure. They just had asked me to like do like minor changes in terms of the formatting, the graphics, and in terms of the length of the portfolio. So the one that you're probably going to see is more shorter.
You're talking about internships, wanting to apply to them. How is that going so far for you? How many have you sent out, and have you heard anything back from them?
I think I've sent around 30 or so places until now, and I've applied through some job boards as well. But still, I would still say it's a bit hard, I guess, to get internships. But I'm trying my best. I feel like I will be able to land one in a couple of months. Like,
You said you were going to graduate soon. So why try to get an internship now rather than getting a full-time job?
because I'm not sure if someone would hire me directly, like for a job, since I don't have any actual like work experience. So it would be nice to like do an internship and maybe convert that into a job. And also because right now, since I'm just doing my thesis, I have some free time, so I thought might as well utilize that to get some work experience and get industry ready.
I was going to school, 8 years ago. When you are a senior, sure, you're looking for internships, but you really want to start looking for a full-time job. You know you're going to be graduating soon. And so in my mind, a couple of months before I was graduating, I was for sure thinking about landing a full-time job as a junior designer rather than looking for an internship. Of course, I would take an internship if that's all I could take. And so that potentially could be a reflection on how difficult the job market is. There doesn't quite seem to be enough industrial design jobs to go around and satisfy all the graduates that are graduating. And so all the best designers are getting the jobs. There's also the designers that get lucky, that know people, that network, that are just really good at getting to know people and getting themselves out there to be able to land these opportunities.
It's so competitive that it's, for example, a single job application will probably have like thousands upon thousands of people just sending their portfolios in. So it's really hard to stand out. So the reason I'm looking for an internship now is because I do not think like with no experience, no one's going to like hire you directly for a junior designer role.
Before I jump deep into your portfolio, this is the time where you can speak, preference anything that you want me to know before we jump into the portfolio pinup section.
I saw the last portfolio pinup where he said like just like be brutally honest, and I would say the same. Just let me know, like no hold.
Looks like a cleaning brush. So immediately when I see renders of this, it reminds me of like something that I see on Behance. So there's just something about this with it being floating in the air, Nice gray white background, nice gray light background, very pastel like type of CMF color material finish. So it's a very pleasing shot. I think it looks great. Definitely a newer designer or just somebody who's not a designer and they see something like this and they think it looks pretty. Somebody like me who's thinking about hiring you, I think that this is the easy route to take. It's kind of like icing on the cake. You know, you make this pleasing thing with a nice CMF with good lighting. It looks pretty. You start to see a lot of these often over time. And the issue that I have with these is that just the overall form is very simple. It's you do a little bit of a extrusion, add a fillet at the end, split the bodies a little bit, you know, do a concave, play around with the lighting and the shadows, and then add a couple different flashy materials like something that's translucent, something that's shiny, and something that's a little matte, combination of all those. And so I think that if you were to take it a step further, it would be something that's just a little bit more complicated, something that just takes more than a couple of extrusions and fillets in order to accomplish this 3D model. Show me a little bit that makes it look like you can really 3D model in a very advanced way. Somebody who's only practicing SolidWorks for about a month or so can be able to pull this off. And so what you really want to do is try to separate yourself. Obviously, with design, you know, if you're going to start your own business or if you're working under a brand, making something simple as this is fine. But as a design student who's really trying to show off your skills, who's trying to get hired as a industrial designer for another company, you really want to highlight the skills that you have. Second page, it shows a little bit about you. So immediately I thought that I was going to be able to start seeing more development of this, but it seems like it was just more of an opening shot. It would be more appropriate to maybe start with something like this, just showing yourself off, and then you could open up with your portfolio pieces. 4 different portfolio pieces, I think, what would make this stronger. There's no reason why 1, 2, 3, 4 needs to be so big compared to the actual content of your portfolio. I think what also would make it way more powerful is just to have a little thumbnail. Very nice hero shot, beautiful shot, something similar to what you have here. Bloombrella. I think this is a nice shot, but it shouldn't be your opening shot. So this one here, it's so zoomed up to where I can't necessarily have a good grasp on what the design really is. You know, it's a strong image, it's a powerful image, but not for your very first shot. The very first shot should be immediate. When I look at it, I can tell exactly what it is. Something like this, I think moving this to the first page, I can see what it is, I can see where it should be used, and then I could, you know, zoom up and see more of the close-ups of it, take up the whole screen. And maybe instead of showing a lot of her, it would show a little bit more, slightly different angle where it shows a little bit more of the design. I really do like this left image here because it really does show a lot. It takes up a lot of the picture of your design. I think she's also very heavy. You know, just the clothing that she's wearing, the lighting, it just looks very dark and heavy. So immediately I'm just looking at her. You want to show that this is how the product is used. This is how the user would use it. But you don't really need to fully emphasize the person themselves. When you're showing something like this, you're really leading with your engineering, with your idea on understanding how things work, more than leading with the actual design part of it, the aesthetics part of it, which is the material. So I would show the material of this. I would show how you came up with some of these wrinkles, this origami shape. These are the more design parts of a product. So far, what I've seen is this close-up, which is okay. I don't quite know what it is. I see the girl using it. Okay, it's telling me what it is, but not necessarily leading with the design quite yet. And then it immediately hits me hard with engineering. Okay, this is a really great shot. I think this is the perfect shot right here. This is what I'm talking about. It shows the design. It shows it in a very pleasing way. It shows that the girl is using it underneath the umbrella, but it's not highlighting her. The actual design of your product is taking up all of the real estate. It's a very unique look with, you know, a bright orange with a white. Maybe there's a reason behind it, but your design is so nice, and then it just takes up with this kind of neon orange color. And so I think if it was black, maybe if it was white, maybe if it was the color of this nice, pink magenta looking flower, it would make a lot more sense. What I'm seeing is that there's not a lot of inspiration taken from the flower, maybe the ripples, but the flower has these petal like things. They're more round. And then when you look at your design, it's more flat and it's more octagonal in a way. And so there's hard edges, the creases, all the lines look kind of like have like these stripes to them. Whereas the flower looks a little more wrinkly. And so I kind of see a disconnect between the two. This is, I think, is a lot closer. This foil here, I do really like that you took up the whole page. I would like to see more development of it, more sketches, more of different shapes that you've considered through sketching, through photoshopping, through 3D CAD. And so right now I see a lot of prototyping skills. I see some engineering skills, but I do want to see some CAD skills. How did you actually make this part? I want to see the CAD of it. I want to see some renders of it. Right now, I think this more looks like a crafts project. Very crafty, making things with your hands, but not really strong, hardcore industrial design. What is it? I don't really know. Kind of looks like something you wear on your head. Maybe it could be a belt. There's products out there that are immediately obvious. Things like a car or a stapler or a computer mouse. There's things where people just know immediately what they are, so you can just show them without too much explanation. Then there's other things where it's kind of vague. You don't really know what it is, and if you saw it out of context and you saw it so zoomed up and close like this, you don't really know what it is. And so that's the first message that you want to get across on the very first shot of your portfolio piece, is to tell the viewer what this product is. Cool, you did a good job printing it out, making a model, fitting it on a person. Nice. This is the shot immediate where I could tell what it is. It jumps into engineering. You're leading a lot with engineering. Maybe that's what you want to go, and I think that's cool. My personal experience, we lead more with design, with aesthetics, with form and shape and materials and beautiful shots. Whereas I think for you, it's more engineering, function heavy. Yeah, very functional, still close up shots, exploded views. What that indicates to a person is it tells them that you've thought about how this product works. You've thought about all the parts of the product, not only just the exterior, but also the interior. You thought about all the different components that are inside, and you're showing it all in the exploded view way. It's going towards that more functional engineering, how this product works type of a direction. 3D printing, same thing, prototyping, engineering, mechanics. Again, 3D printing, engineering, mechanics, how it works, prototype layout. Okay, so this is kind of where it's slowly starting to get towards that design feel, right? When I say design feel, it's the typical things you think of when you think of design. You think of aesthetics, you think of form, you think of shapes and beauty and how to make things look really nice. And so I'm starting to see a little bit of exploration on how you're trying to get it to look. And I think these sketches are really nice. I think you laid them out very structured and very clean. Your perspective is strong. You have some orthographic shots, a lot of strong perspective hero shots here, some shading, black and white, very nice, pleasing layout here. Really don't think you need this whole section right here taking up a lot of the real estate. I really just want to see this sketch blown up, taking up the whole page, because I think your sketches look really great. So what I think about these sketches too, another thing to say is sometimes you'll look at a sketch and you'll think, wow, that looks very nice. And it also looks very effortless. It looks like they're just very naturally good at sketching. And then there are sketches where they do look nice, but they also look like it was very high effort. And I think that's what these sketches fall into. They look very nice, and I think you did a great job sketching them, but they also look very high effort. It looks like you took a long time to sketch some of these right here. I think these sketches, they look like you really spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure that they looked as nice as possible. If you want to kind of always give that effortless vibe to it, and I think that would take this page here to the next level. Okay, cool. Shows how it works. Some renders of it. I think this shot is very cool. I think you should probably just have a shot that looks like that. just that right there, take up the whole page, show your whole design, show me a couple different angles. This is more of a top view. I would like to see more of a straight on view, showing a little bit more of the light, maybe a rear, couple of close up of this, because this is your money maker. This is like the highlight. I would just like to see more of what you actually did with the headset itself. And then eventually, show something like this later down the line, saying that you also thought about the packaging and whatnot. And then it jumps into a different portfolio piece. Looks like some sort of a container. Okay, so it's a cutting board container type thing. So the thing about projects like these is you got to know it essentially caters to a company that will make products like these. So for example, if you were getting hired for Tupperware or some company that makes containers type of thing, I think this is a good project to have. But to just be like hired on as a general designer trying to get anything that you can to try to really show off your skills, container projects like these, it's just a little too simple. Color, material, finish, very nice. And then it goes to another one. So very short projects, very, very short, not very thorough. I think all you really need is about 2 to 3 different portfolio pieces that are very thorough and very strong in showing all the aspects of industrial design all in one portfolio piece. Ideation to sketching to inspiration, CAD work, rendering, development, 3D printing, accessories, hero shots, render, and make it complex. So something like this immediately is already a way more complex than what you've shown so far. This is, everything so far has been very geometric, simple, very, very simple. And so this one here, just like jumping far into the deep end. It's so different so far than what I've seen yet. Again, this shot doesn't immediately scream lamp just by the angle that you picked. As a designer, designing it yourself, I know you know what it is. You probably spent hours trying to make this thing, and so you know what it is, but you have to take the perspective of somebody who doesn't. And so when they see something like this, it doesn't immediately scream, this is a lamp. You're taking bones, inspiration, okay, cool. Some nice close-up shots, all right. 3D prints. Yeah, something like this at an angle like this could be your very first hero shot, opening up this portfolio piece. Maybe a light casting onto the ground here, it also would tell the story a lot better. So you're very strong when it comes to engineering. Immediately, I could tell that. So if you were to apply to a job where they're wanting a designer, but a lot of the things that they're producing is very function based, I think you would be a good candidate. I think they would really consider you because you do spend a lot of time to figure out how things work, and you've shown that in this portfolio. So I think that's a strong suit when it comes to this portfolio. Boom, hero shot, purple background, shows the whole product. A lot of the surface that you did here, it's kind of crazy how you did all of this. It would be nicer if this, if it wasn't black. I think that since you are referencing bones, it would be interesting to have it be more of a light gray because it's kind of diverging away from that inspiration that you have with the bones. So an ivory color could potentially be better. And then this red cable also I think doesn't help. It just brought this like bones and structure kind of feel to it. And then all of a sudden it brings it to like this very sinister looking black with red kind of color. But then it also has this purple and fun and kind of feminine background to it. So there's a lot of these feelings that I'm feeling just looking at this shot here. So then it jumps onto another one. So not a lot of sketches. I'm curious to see how you actually built this, because building something like this, you'd probably have to use something like Blender. And then you jump into a shoe, but you have these like pieces in there, but then you don't show them. So I think this shoe, very nice sketch, looks very cool. I think you did a great job sketching it. I really see the form in it. Very beautiful sketch, actually. But then there's nothing. I don't see it anymore. This is the end of your portfolio. Same with the very first one. I saw this shot here. It looks really cool. I have all my feedback from it, like I mentioned at the beginning of this Portfolio Pinup section, but then I don't see it, So I'm curious why you put these in there, but then you don't actually show more of the development of it. Overall, I think this portfolio, like I said, is very strong when it comes to building, mechanics, function, how a product works. I think that if you are really leading with that, though, it could be stronger. You could show more of the mechanics. As far as design, form, shapes, proportions, surfacing, undercuts, things like this detailing, I think this portfolio is lacking in that sense. And typically, for me at least, when I think about design, that's what I think about. And so, as an industrial designer, those are the things that you really want to lead with. Those are the things that you want to show in your portfolio. As far as all the tiers, S tier being absolutely excellent, you should be hired today. A tier being very, very good, maybe not the cream of the crop, but still very, very good and very hireable. B meaning, okay, there's some improvement, but you're pretty decent. You're good enough. I think you would be able to be successful, but maybe not quite wow. C being definitely a lot more improvement. I think this is a low B if I were to give this a grade. Yo designers, hope you enjoyed that episode of Portfolio Pinup. I want to keep this going, so if you want to be able to be on the next episode of Portfolio Pinup, get feedback from me, go ahead and shoot me an email. The link should be down below in the description. I'd really love to hear from you, so have your portfolio ready and we could figure out the details from there. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.